all we have, just to make sure.
Oh, there's our mayor.
Hello there.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Hey, I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to complain.
Well, I'm so happy to see you.
Yeah, I've got to try to arrange a meeting with you sometime, either this week or next week.
Okay. Okay.
Got
No
some
problem.
important things I need to discuss with you.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
All right.
All right. It's 7 o'clock and we have quorum. So I will call this meeting to order. And at this time, we'll have roll call. Vice Mayor Ayasu.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Councilman Carroll.
Aye.
Councilman Hassan. Councilman Hassan. We'll come back to him. Councilwoman Hopkins.
Here.
And Councilwoman Johnson.
Here.
Thank you. And at this time, we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the
to
flag
the flag of the United States
of America
and to the republic for which
for
it
which it
stands,
stands,
one nation, under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for
for
all.
all. Thank you. And in terms of administrative business and presentation, we will have the approval of the 11-5 and special call meeting 12-1 minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the council meeting 11-5 and special call meeting 12-1 of 2020.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Thank you. It has been properly moved and second that we approve the minutes from council meeting 11-5-2020 and special call meeting 12-1-2020. Is there any discussion? Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
nay. Motion passed. And in terms of the agenda, we will proceed. There are no changes to the agenda. Correct? So we will proceed with the agenda, and the first report will be the planning and zoning report. Ms. Cowie?
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. There, we will be presenting the end of year report for the Planning and Development Department. This will be a collective report of all happenings that have taken place from January to current. The City of Clarkston and the Planning Department has processed 528 permits this year. Time permits that were processed are 11. It was 1 rezoning this year, 8 text amendments, and 2 conditional use permits. Currently, we have 4 developments that are underway on East Avenue, the cottage homes that are located on Bond Street, the Glendale Road Townhomes, and the Peachtree on Ponce development on East Ponce de Leon. The city did receive 3 submittals for proposals for the zoning ordinance rewrite, and that will take place in 2021. We are on schedule based on the RFP timeline to present recommendations to the mayor and city council at January's meeting. The Clarkston 2040 plan also will be underway in January of 2021, and that is also slated to begin between January and February of 2021. Madam Mayor?
Thank you, Ms. Cowie. Thank you, Ms. Cowie. We will now move into the city manager's report. Mr. Gomez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, good evening, everyone. This is Robin Gomez, the Clarkston City Manager. I'm going to begin with our statement of revenues and expenditures for the current fiscal year through November 2020. We have, as I've stated at these meetings over this year, particularly from April on, we have dealt with the uncertainty of the COVID-19 and the economic impacts, but I am mostly pleased to report that this report will show, or this data, that we are have fared this year fairly well in terms of our revenue, the taxes and fees that we have received. I'll go through some explanations, but we have, as I've stated before, also kept our expenditures to what we needed to accomplish to continue to provide the very high quality municipal services to all our residents, businesses, and visitors. So I'll go into some detail a little bit, but what you can see in the screen are, as we are 11 months through our fiscal year, our expenditures were at about 74.4% of, 76% of our expenditures through the 11 months. And again, we've tried to keep those down due to the unknown of what our revenue would be. But as you can see directly below that, our revenue is just over 5 million, or about 74.4%. The detail of the summary by categories of our revenues, there's some variations. We still haven't received our franchise tax, mainly the franchise fees that we received from Georgia Power. We won't receive those till the end of February, likely. But as the data shows, most of our revenues are fairly close or a little bit above, with the exception of the municipal court fines. Our court processes just reopened a few months ago, but even after reopening, our level of activity has declined this year relative to prior year. We'll have an update at our January work session once we complete this calendar year of that activity, because again, it led to a lower revenue. But so far, as I said, I'll get to some of that detail here shortly. And just the detail by summary of our key expenditures by some of the categories, from full-time salaries to the benefits and a few others, such as repairs and vehicle maintenance. And we've kept just about every category below where we are currently for the current year's budget. So moving into just some of the details for the expenditures, we really no significant changes in our expenditures for the year. We're still below, and again, in just about every category, but this is an 18-page report that goes by line item, what we have spent, and what the budget is for the current year, what we've spent in the current year, and then what the prior year expenditures through this same time period. So really we have spent a little bit more in our attorney fees, and just the product of a lot of activity that is going on. We have spent also a little bit less just overall in general administrative salaries, and we will really no other significant changes. Just most of our categories are below budget and certainly compared to the prior year. Moving on to our community action projects. Again, as I've said before, we've only spent a little bit on some of the activities. The community center, we will end up likely providing them the entire year's worth of the funding that we provide, as we did to Segal Radio, but the others will be well below. And certainly for some of our task forces, the health, youth, for example, we just are not going to be expending any money in the current year. Our buildings and grounds, again, similarly, just well below our line items for the current years. Although we have been maintaining, again, we're just simply haven't seen the levels of expenditure, as we've had the pool closed and Milan Park was closed for a while, and we just recently, or just since yesterday, opened Friendship Forest. In our court department, Again, that really the only increase for the current year related to the prior year are the salary increases that all employees, and that goes for all departments, but pretty much all the other categories are below the budget for the current year. Really no significant changes from the prior month as well. So that's for our courts, where we're at 75% of this year. Expenditures are 75% for this year's budget. And continuing for our police department, similarly, we're a little bit above due to the 3%, and we've had a few vacancies, but we're starting to fill those vacancies right now. We have 2, and we're hoping to have those filled by the start of 2021. So again, no significant changes in the current year's budget. Same with Public Works. Although looks like we've hit what we had budgeted, we haven't actually moved out from this spreadsheet the expenses attributed to the COVID, the additional 5% from COVID, but we will be making those changes out of both for Public Works and Police. Oops. And then moving on to our, sorry about that, just jumped from Public Works down to our Parks budget. Again, similarly, where we haven't made all the expenditures that we had planned to make for the current year. And then moving down, continuing through planning and development, even though we did have the vacancy this current year. Again, we haven't had any significant changes in our expenditures, and even continuing through our, really no changes as well through our debt service.
Mr. Gomez, I don't mean
Yes.
to interrupt you, but at this time, I'm going to ask that everyone mute their phone or their computer so that we can go ahead and hear Mr. Gomez's report. So if you haven't already, please mute your phone. So take this opportunity to mute your phones and your computers. I'm sorry about that, Mr. Gomez. Would you please continue?
And our capital projects, again, as I've said in the prior month, we didn't spend the items that we were planning on this year that we've deferred to next year. Our SPLOST fund just shows the expenditures that we've had for the current year, especially since we issued the new bonds earlier this year. That's why it's significantly higher than the prior year. And our federal seizures, we have made a couple of purchases, but still below what we spent last year. And again, the federal seizure, the SPLOST, as we get into the funds beyond the general fund, they are funded specifically by specific either taxes or fees, as well as our grant funds that come from specific grants, whether from the state for construction or as we receive for our LMIG grant and just other smaller grants. Well, we just lost our. Huh. Well. Somehow my screen disappeared. Okay. Oh, there it is. Not sure why. Okay, and continuing through our, as I had mentioned, through our federal seizure and into the city seizure funds. Mentioning our grant funds, and then the last expenditure fund, our CARES Act or coronavirus, and we continue to go through the 1.4 million. This shows activity through last week. We were just over 800 and $16,000 in expenditures from our CARES Act funding that we received. And a few more of our enterprise funds, our stormwater fund, again, no significant changes from the prior month to the current. Same with our sanitation, except that we do pay for our trash collection every month. So that's really the increase from one month to the other. And we have not spent anything out of our affordable housing trust, the $200,000. Our revenue, moving into our revenues, as this shows at the top of the screen. No. Okay. As I'd stated in our general fund revenues, the very top in the handwriting at the top, this shows our real property tax collections through November the 30th. We've collected from the underneath the yellow rows, the second and the third row, identify other real prop tax, that's our real property tax, and then public real property tax from the prior year. Adding those two together equal the $2,471,373.66 in real property taxes that we've received through November the 30th. The negative $196,132.32 are part of the appeals that mostly commercial properties made, apartment complexes last year into this year, that resulted in that negative number. So the county refunded taxes previously paid to those entities that appealed their valuation and subsequently received the property taxes back. But still subtracting that from the 2.6 million line right above that gives us the nearly 2.5 million in real property tax revenue. The prior year in 2019, at this point in time, we had received $2,465,043.45 in real property taxes. So we are just $6,000 above where we were last year. So we are for all intents and purposes, in a pretty good financial in terms of our single largest revenue source, our real property tax. There are the other taxes that are listed on there. You can see the differences from the current year to the prior year. The public utility tax were a little bit below, or about a quarter, 20% below the prior year. Our motor vehicle tax is much higher, nearly a third, 30% higher than the prior year. As our intangible tax is higher, and then our other personal property tax is also higher. So these come from the property taxes that are billed for commercial, industrial, residential. So we are above where we were last year, but taking into account that 2 years ago, from 18 to 19, the tax digest grew by 25%. From 19 to the current year, it was about a 10% growth. But again, we had numerous properties that did appeal their valuation and therefore paid less than what was reported to us, or received a refund in their taxes in the current year, as I stated. So as we continue down, as I stated, we haven't received our franchise taxes for electric. We typically don't receive those until February. The other franchise taxes are still a little bit below budget, but not too far off from the prior year. Our alcoholic beverage excise taxes are a little bit above. Our local option mixed drink tax is significantly higher than the prior year. This is the 3% tax on every mixed drink that is served in our restaurants, and there have been a lot more people visiting our restaurants and ordering. So therefore, as their revenue goes up, our tax similarly goes up. Where we start to see a little bit of a decline is in the business occupational tax, as we haven't received revenues, particularly related to at least a couple of months from where we record the payment from strokers that we did not receive because they were closed. But the next line are insurance premium tax that was $50,000 more than the prior year, and $50,000 more than what we had budgeted. So just continuing down this spreadsheet, now we get into some smaller revenues until we hit the building permits. The work permit and ID card entertainment, where the budget is $100,000. We've received $16,504.26 in the current year. Last year, it was just under $101,000. This is again the result of strokers being closed, combined with that we have not been issuing these work permits that require folks to physically come in to City Hall to receive these. We are going to eventually have to issue these, which will likely start in January. We're going to set up a process to safely issue those and have those employees go through that process as safely as possible, as well as obviously as safe as possible for our staff to be able to issue those. And then really the largest revenue that just like the prior year, due to all the wonderful economic development activity and some of the information shared by Ms. Cowie, you can see that our building permit revenue is significantly above our $80,000 budget, which was pretty much just a historical over several years budget based on historical building permit activity. But last year and the current year, due to all the primarily the 6 developments, the 5 housing plus the NAMBY Send Relief project, have yielded that much more revenue due to the activity. Moving over to the next page, again, this just shows some of our smaller revenues until we get to our court proceeds. But just to reiterate, these are some of the revenues that we did not collect, such as the pool admissions, the women's club reservations. We collected very little. The pavilion reservations, and our court fees, as I said, are just down because our activity is down. So we will make that adjustment at year end. And then some of the other revenues, again, if we take out at the end of this spreadsheet, the revenues, the proceeds from capital leases, the revenue proceeds from the debt issuance that we made last year, that we're not going to make to the same level this year, you can see the difference in revenue from the current year of $5,029,844.30 to the total revenue at this time last year, about $190,641. So we're not too far off the revenue from the prior year to the current year, but again, our expenses are down, and we expect to finish the year with a balanced budget, possibly even a little bit of a surplus, but and which would be fantastic if that's how we ended the year. And then the rest of this report just details the different revenue sources from the funds that I had previously shared, the expenditures from our grants to stormwater, utility, and again, stormwater and sanitation, which are billed with property taxes, are where they should be and comparable to the prior year, actually a little bit above the prior year. I know for stormwater, we had a couple of properties that were not billed properly. So we've made those corrections were made earlier this year that have resulted in a little bit more revenue to us. And just continuing with some additional, the SPLOST revenue, we did receive another positive distribution this past month, just over $155,000. I did provide that to the council in my weekly update. Excuse me, $156,000 was our most recent distribution. So we will finish the year a little bit below the budget, but not as much as we had anticipated, taking into account that back in April, that was our lowest month at just under $119,000. But the last 5 consecutive months, we've received even more than the prior year for those same 5 months, from June through October. So we will likely finish the year fairly close to the budget, but taking into account the economic, a little bit of the downturn back in March, April, we're in fairly good shape. And lastly, just we've had minimal revenues in our seizure funds. And then lastly, we show the revenue for our CARES Act money that we received from the federal government through DeKalb County. So we're, as I stated, a little bit more positive news in receiving our property taxes that do comprise nearly half of our general fund revenue. And we're hopefully that we still have a few distributions left this month for property taxes, but we'll certainly keep updating you weekly as to what those collections are and as we finish the year, and we'll have a full report at the January work session as well. Moving along to wanted to share briefly our construction. We are approaching where the streetscape is even closer to being completed. We're hoping that we will be turning on, or the contractor will be turning on the lights for the decorative lights along Market Street and East Ponce this Thursday. And they've installed the electricity for that. They're working to finish just some other undergrounding. And then we were informed that by January, Georgia Power and their contractors would remove the 4 poles on Market Street that are part of the project to underground the utilities on Market Street. And the MARTA bus shelters they're working on those now. They hope to have those finished in a couple of weeks. And then the striping, depending on weather, should be completed also sometime in December, weather pending, as long as it doesn't get too cold. They would be able to do the final striping or the thermoplast of all the road markings and the yellow and the white lines on East Ponce and Market. And that will bring our streetscape to nearly 100% completion. There are minor repairs that need to be done on a couple of walls. The contractor did make some repairs in the last week and a half on some of the paving that was recently completed. But overall, we're approaching the very end, really, and the final part to be completed would be the stormwater retention area on the intersection, near the intersection of North Indian Creek and Market Street next to Balaguer Market, combined with eventually also I mentioned the completion of the MARTA bus shelters, but also then the repair of the wrought iron fence that's been damaged in 2 sections on East Ponce de Leon along the CSX right-of-way between essentially Jolly and Pecan Streets. That'll be repaired as well. Hopefully, well, likely not until January for that repair. So all in all, it's looking a lot better. Even the decorative lights, I had a lot of people say how nice the banners look on the decorative lights. We did order more banners. They should be getting installed this week or possibly into next week. And if any of you have been walking or driving around, our public works folks did install some of the holiday decorations that we do put up, and we're planning to have some sort of ceremony, I think a week from Friday, that we would be able to encourage folks probably to tune in and view virtually on the city's Facebook page or other, so we can have a tree lighting and turn all the lights on for the holiday season. And also Friendship Forest, we're going to send out the announcement tomorrow that our parking lot is open. We opened it yesterday and today, and there were people who have been going in and out, parking and walking around the facility. But that, as I stated last week, is 100% completed. So we're excited. The question of when to have the grand opening, I'm open for council or the public suggestions as to when and to have one for Friendship Forest and the streetscape. or possibly have it all together sometime in the early spring, or two separate. We need to determine how best to do those. And lastly, this being our last meeting of the year, I certainly do want to thank all of our city staff and mention that I'm eternally grateful for their continued support, their continued work, especially over the last 9 months in having to deal with our current situation with the virus. It is very much appreciated on my part, their continued support, their continued staying motivated to do the job, even if they're doing it from home. But it is certainly very much appreciated. And I do want to wish everybody, again, this being our last council meeting, everyone a very happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, all of the holidays that all of our residents and folks here celebrate. So, Madam Mayor, that concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions, comments that any council member may have.
Councilman Jamie Carroll, I guess just one question I had is, what, if you have heard anything from the CAB as to what kind of additional payment, the property tax we can anticipate to close out the year, if it's a small amount, large amount, or how much you think remains unpaid, or if that depends on the status of other appeals?
I haven't, I'll ask our finance director. I don't know what we would expect. I mean, we could look at what we received last year, but we're probably only a couple $100,000, if that we would receive, because most, again, property tax bills are due at the end of September and at the end of November, and the county usually turns around fairly quickly to make those payments. But we'll provide that update. I don't think that
it probably won't be that much the rest of the year, and then we'll get an end of the year report that tells us how much we have receivable, and we'll make year-end adjusting accruals based on the receivables. Right now, we've only booked payments that have been received by DeKalb County.
Heard him, but I couldn't hear all of it.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear Dan either on that one.
Oh, he said, well, that we shouldn't be getting that much more. I mean, realistically, maybe, I mean, up to possibly 100,000 more, but then we will receive an end of the year report from the county of what we've received, and then any receivables, any outstanding that they haven't received, and we will record those. Right now, we've recorded everything that all the cash that we've received, actual deposits. Usually the county has some payments that come in after December, sometimes into January. But we will have a full report from the county in January, and we will then provide that to all of you.
Are there any other questions for Mr.
I have a
Gomez?
question for Mr. Gomez. Mr. Gomez, you mentioned that the Public Works and our police department would receive the retro pay. Does that include the clerks that assist police?
The court clerks? No, we have not included them in the hazard pay.
Do they report to the building every day?
They've been working varying shifts, and they haven't been reporting every day, but they have been reporting certainly when we've had court, but they've been working varying shifts as Public Works has, but they've been working, I mean, inside, not inside. And I mean, their work is indoors. They're not outside, but we could include them. It's not something that we really looked at. Honest from the beginning, it was just police and Public Works, since they're the ones that are interacting, have been interacting regularly with the public since March, or again, being outside and exposed to the elements during the pandemic. Our court staff are really, not necessarily interacting with every person that comes in, again, we just resumed our court processes or our court in-person court in September.
Well, that's a very good point. That might be something we want to look at, especially if they've been coming since March and they do in some ways interact with the public.
Well, they really have, I mean, very minimally up until
Okay.
court started again in September. But we certainly can, I mean, we can do that and likely include them since they have had interaction. Just as I stated, something I just did not include them, thinking that they did not have any public interaction until September, but certainly we can include them and I will look to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Councilman.
I have a question, Mayor. I'm on the line also.
Oh, Dorothy's on the line. Go ahead, Dorothy.
Yes. Actually, we are not only court staff, we are also police records. And we are in the office from March 16 assisting police. Police cannot work without us.
Right, and
So
to
we are
process.
we are police, we are court, and we are also police records. And police cannot work without us. And we are in the office from March 16.
And we will include the 4 court employees in the hazard pay.
Thank you. Mr. Gomez, are there any other questions from the council? Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Now the report for the city attorney. Mr. Quinn?
Hello, Madam Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you. It took me a second to get my mute handled there, but thank you. But I do not have a report right now. I will very briefly update the council later during our executive session.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll proceed to council remarks, and we will start with Vice Mayor Yasu.
No reports, Madam Mayor. Thank you. You know what? Actually, I just want to say thanks to our city residents for their great participation during the last election. And I also want to remind everybody to make sure we go out one more time and vote during the runoff election and show up again one more time. And I want to wish everybody great holidays. Thank you.
Yasu. And now Council Member Hassan.
I have no report, but I would like to wish the council, the mayor, and the Clarkston residents happy holiday.
So much. And Council Member Carroll.
Yes, I would just like to thank the staff and our fellow council members for all their hard work during this year. I think it hasn't been an easy year, especially with the pandemic. I appreciate the hard work. I appreciate the hard work that everyone else has put in, and also want to wish everyone happy holidays.
Thank you, Council Member Carroll. Councilwoman Hopkins.
I also just want to wish everybody a happy holidays. Hope you got to get out and get some fresh air during the Thanksgiving weekend, and to thank the staff as we're closing on my first year on City Council for all of the help that goes to everyone on the council and our newly elected mayor as well in helping me get acclimatized to the council. So thank you, everyone.
Councilman Johnson.
Yes, I would like to wish everyone a happy holidays. And I want to say that I had the pleasure on November the 30th of attending my first swearing in of a mayor, Beverly Burks. Welcome to the team. I appreciate everything from Mr. Gomez, to the chief, to the staff, to council. This has been a very new experience for me. I want to thank the citizens as well, because half of them have been on council before. So I just want to thank everyone for their participation in my learning efforts this year. It's been a pleasure making that 1 year mark on council, and happy holidays to each and every one of you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Johnson. And now the mayor's report. Well, first of all, thank you everyone for participating and for us having more than 53% of Clarkston residents participating in the election in November. And so I really want to say thank you very much. And thank you to Vice Mayor Yasu for presiding over the meetings while we were in this transition. So thank you so much. And to the city and staff, you are our greatest asset, and we appreciate all the work that you are doing during this time, especially with COVID-19. You are keeping us afloat in terms of what we need to do for the city, and I just want to make sure to really recognize you for that. I want to make sure in terms of this being my first meeting, thank you so much again for the opportunity. And I want to make sure in the upcoming meetings that we're going to provide the community an opportunity to participate. So if it's applying for committees, you'll see the planning and zoning and some of the other committees. We want to make sure that you stay involved and engaged. So please take that opportunity. It could be a couple of hours with a nonprofit, but we want to make sure even during this time of COVID that we stay active in our community. So again, thank you for the opportunity to serve you, and I look forward to a very robust year. So thank you. So with that, I will open up for public comments, and any member of the public may address the council during the time allotted for public comment. Each attendee will be allowed 3 minutes for comments at the discretion of the presiding officer. The public comment period will be limited to 40 minutes, and it is not a time for dialogue. If your public comment contains a series of questions, please submit those to the city clerk in writing. This will facilitate follow-up by the council or staff. The city council desires to allow an opportunity for public comments. However, the business of the city must proceed in an orderly, timely manner. Mr. Gomez, do we have anyone for public comments at this time?
Madam Mayor, the only person who called in, we had 2 people who called in, emailed in, and those were Mr. Brian Medford and Miss Amina Osman. And I believe Mr. Medford is on the call. I don't know if Miss Amina is on the call.
Yes. Mr. Medford, would you like to go ahead with your public comments, please?
Yes. Welcome, Madam Mayor, to your first meeting. Glad to hear. It'll be a fun ride. I'm looking forward to see where the ship goes. It's gonna be fun. I wanted to say I'm excited about hearing that we had 3 people apply for the zoning rewrite. That is fantastic news. I was nervous that we wouldn't get anybody to come back. I just wanted to implore the council to not let any moss grow on the process, and that once the applicants are in place, to basically move everything out of the way and get this thing going so that we don't get sucker punched again on the zoning side. To dovetail into that, I would just like to remind everybody, I emailed them all earlier about the City of Atlanta city planning study. I appreciate those who replied back to me saying they would read it. For everyone else, I implore that you read the article I sent you, the study I sent you. It is fantastic and deals with a lot of interesting topics that we should probably address in our future zoning review of our own city. Also add that I took a walk through downtown on Sunday, and I love the way things are starting to look. It was great to take a few minutes to sit under the the seated pavilions outside Refuge for a minute, then walk down to the other ones that are over there off Indian Creek. So I love the way things are sprucing up around here. It's been a long road, I know, but I appreciate everybody's hard work. So that is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Medford. And Ms. Osman, Amina? Amina, would you like to make your comments? You'd have to get off mute. Okay. Okay, I don't think she can get off mute. Let's see if she's able to. If not, that was it, Mr. Gomez?
Yes, I did not have anybody else calling.
Okay, I don't see her on the line now. Okay. Okay, I don't see her. So with that, thank you very much. That will close public comments. We do not have any old business. Now we will proceed to new business, which is the G1, the 2021 budget adoption, as well with item number 1, which will be the presentation, followed by the public hearing. Mr. Gomez, would you proceed with the presentation?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And yes, this is our third and final public hearing of our fiscal year 2021 budget. And we, as I have stated before, this is the calendar, the schedule of our process. And we are here tonight, December 8th, 2020, the council regular meeting for this final budget presentation. I've shared more than enough on our COVID-19 impacts. As I've stated before, we're still uncertain what fiscal 21 will hold. I will say, excuse me, based on the continued levels of unemployment, even though there have been jobs added, we are still hearing and seeing, based on our COVID assistance programs, particularly the rental and the utility, that there are still numerous folks that are unemployed, and they're still, although they're receiving our assistance and then assistance from other agencies, there's still high levels of unemployment. And what that will bring for 21 is the uncertainty as to how the economy will recover due to the continued presence of the virus. We're hoping that, and very hopeful that everything will improve. And now that a vaccine is apparently being distributed and will be in the U.S. apparently likely by the end of this month, or probably not till January, that the economy certainly will improve. There will be a change in the federal administration. So there's a lot of changes, but again, as I've stated before, our industries are changing, but certainly we're sort of maintaining the status quo from the current year to next year without making any significant changes. And we will still, what we will bring to the council in 2021 is a little bit more detailed, as much detail as a little bit more that we can provide regarding our financial, where we are, as well as changes to the budget. We will be making those a little bit more frequently, and that's, I will mention a little bit more on that going forward, but really no changes from last week into next year's budget. We're just over $11.5 million in our budget. This is all of our funds that equate that $11.5 million. And again, the general fund is still the lion's share of our budget, followed by SPLOST. And then our stormwater sanitation funds are the ones that they're very important, but they're doing well, and we expect that we will expend at least those amounts next year. Again, we're at a 12.6% decrease in our total fiscal 21 proposed budget over the current year's budget. Our general fund revenue, again, a little slight increase over the 2020 adopted rates. You can see that We will end up 2020 probably close to that 5.8 million. We will have a lot more of that next month when we conclude the current year. Again, our general fund revenue history over the last 5 years, including the proposed for next year. And where do we get our general fund revenues? I've said earlier, the majority from property taxes, followed by other taxes and fees such as the insurance premium, the franchise taxes, and then most of the other fees that we collect, from such as business taxes, et cetera. And then from our permits, what we expect for next year, which includes our building permits and fines and forfeitures. And this is what we will make adjustments to this, again, because our fines and forfeitures will likely be much less than the proposed 539,000. This slide shows our proposed expenditures by department and categories from administration. It shows to our police, where we spend 1/3 of our general fund dollars, to public works, the second highest category. And again, our general fund budget, just a slight increase over the current year general fund budget. Our 10 years of our tax digest, as I mentioned earlier, we had a sizable increase from 18 to 19, and then the increase continued into 2020. But again, we have had likely in these 10 years, from 11 to 20, just in the last year alone, likely the largest number of appeals to the valuations to the county. And again, to remind everyone, those appeals, when folks receive their initial tax valuation assessment, they have essentially through the end of July to appeal that, and then the county goes through their process to review that and then makes a determination whether to keep as it was valued or to lower. But if they don't make a decision by the end of the month, then the taxes are, the property taxpayer will pay the same that they paid in the prior year. And then once the county completes their review, then that property taxpayer will either receive a refund or they will pay more. But as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, for the November 2020 revenues expenditures, we've had more refunds this year than ever before. Again, the previous slide showed the decrease in our digest, followed by just a very hefty increase in the last 6 years. This is our millage rate history. Again, we're proposing the same millage rate, but based on the conditions that I've stated now for probably over a year, it is our desire to lower the millage rate going forward, but certainly discussions that we will have, particularly starting at our retreat that we're planning to have in February. This slide just shows the millage rates of other cities, followed by the total millage rate, which includes all taxing authorities. Again, we're still the 3rd highest in the county for city millage rate as well as the total millage rate. And again, a slide showing how the taxes are computed. We have an appraised value, and then all properties are assessed at 40%. This example shows that a property appraised at $100,000 would pay $635.60 in property taxes. Our personnel, our FTE, really the only change is transferring one position from administration to police, and the others, and adding a half-time person in public works. So that brings our total full-time equivalent to 45.1. Here's where we show the transfer, the new part-time, a park ranger. We removed the engineer in planning and development. It is my recommendation that rather than adding a position right now with this budget and planning and development, we will add one in 2021. We haven't quite, between Ms. Cowie and I, exactly identified the job classification or job title, but something along the lines of a planning and development specialist or coordinator, that we would add that position, but we would amend our fiscal 2021 budget at no later than the first quarter. We would look to do that as early as February, So we amend the budget to reflect that increase. We just feel more comfortable doing that than going back through now. And I mean, we could update all of this data to add that position. It is highly likely that we would not fill that position until February either way. But as I've stated many times in my 2 years here, we can amend the budget at any time, and we would bring that back up to the council with the exact, really to determine an exact salary. Ms. Cowie and I discussed what that would be. The more I thought about it, I'm not sure of what what I proposed to her is really the correct salary, but I feel just much more comfortable that we do make that adjustment once we begin 2021. There really isn't a significant difference whether that's done then or now. Really, the only issue now is that we would have to adjust everything that we've put together as part of not only this presentation, but all the documentation, which again is not something excessive, but it is something that we will do, and we will have hopefully get that position filled as possibly as early as February. A position that would assist and provide the support work for all things planning, for zoning, work on economic development, and really assist really in processing just all the planning and development activities. But this will give us some time to create a job description, go forward with exactly what that salary would be, and to ensure that we do have the right job classification, the right position, so that we do fill it and get the best usage and the most effectiveness out of that position. Continuing with our, as I've stated before, we exist to provide a safe city, to promote our economy, promote our development, maintain our infrastructure, and do all of that as efficiently and effectively as we can. This is how we are, for lack of a better term, how we are structured in terms of what the legislative body, the mayor and the council, the executive through the manager, and the role of the manager to oversee the daily operations. And to get into the departmental structure, the budgets, again, the mayor and council are part of the administration's budget, but they're not included in the full-time equivalent count. There's really no significant changes to mayor and council's budget. The administration, again, we transferred one position, but I am proposing a 3% salary increase, and this is across all positions in the city. And again, here's the total expenditures for the city administration, including the mayor and council, and then by category, by personnel, our purchasing contracted services, and then supplies. And as I've stated before, the administration, we oversee the contracts, the projects, various activities for the categories listed, from our attorneys, our IT contracts, our external auditors, our liability insurance. We're proposing some additions in a grant writer, or expending and hiring throughout the year a grant writer to assist with some of the grant writing work. And we've left some money in for the annexation study that we'll have a presentation on at the January work session, but ultimately really no significant changes other than to that. And you can see some of the other contracts that are included in administration budget, including legal, advertising, tax collecting. Onto our police department. Again, we want to ensure an extremely safe, secure city. Our police department's divided into the Office of the Chief, a criminal investigative division, and our patrol. We're looking to be even more community oriented, get officers out, meeting, interacting, as obviously taking into account all the safety processes that we have to meet with residents and businesses. We will have 21 full-time equivalencies. And as I stated, we will be down to about 2 vacancies that we hope to fill in January and be at full staff by January. Really no significant change other than the salary increase, and looking for certainly enhanced service levels, mainly by communicating more with our residents and businesses. Again, our planning and economic development to continue doing the work that we're doing. We left in here the 30,000 budget that will be part of the role of the new position that we would look to add in February or during the first quarter, but simply to continue to tell our story, retain existing businesses, promote existing businesses, and certainly our zoning code professional review that we will be reviewing the 3 firms over the next couple of weeks, and then bringing a recommendation to council in January. Also to look at, as part of our planning and economic development, is our code compliance to maintain our community standards and ensure that our city stays as well as it has and as beautiful as it has been or become. Our plan, and furthermore, there's a salary, we're a 3% salary increase for the 2 existing positions. They also oversee the planning and zoning board activities. Our public works, again, just to continue with the work that the ongoing right-of-way and beautification and maintenance of our parks, including all our litter control and just making sure that our infrastructure is well maintained, including overseeing street sweeping, also overseeing our parks and our facilities, providing the assistance for special events, and they will oversee also the contracts that we have to take care of the wetlands at Friendship Forest and the landscaping, the newer landscaping, alternative landscaping, I'll call it, at around Refuge Coffee at Friendship Forest and at the Brockett Triangle area. Again, a 3% salary increase and 12.1 full-time equivalents. In the parks budget will be our urban forestry as well. We've put that at $50,000 to review really any work involving all of our city tree canopy. That's included in this budget for public works. And just as our capital expenditures, again, the middle ones, the Ford F-150, the bucket and sanitation trucks that we had planned for the current year that we've held off till next year, but we were very thankful that miraculously our garbage truck is still working. It's been to the shop a couple times this year, but it's certainly performed very well, but it is nearing the end of its life. So we're hoping to again replace that. And as I said at the prior presentations, we do have money budgeted for improvements to the house at 40 Oaks that we hope to begin in January. Our stormwater public works provides certainly the inspecting, the cleaning of various drainage areas, and we do allocate $100,000 that come out of the stormwater fund to ensure the maintenance of that utility. On our municipal court, again, also including the 3% salary increase, really no changes to the work that they do, which also, as Ms. Jackson stated, involves quite a bit of the police records component to their work. And just to remind our infrastructure, what we maintain, certainly DeKalb County maintains or provides both the fire rescue and our water and sewer utilities and the overall emergency management coordination throughout. These are county-wide services. Our community action projects, no significant changes other than we do have the 60,000 that we had in the current year's budget. We're leaving in there for next year for environmental projects. We still have the 5 advisory task groups that we haven't been meeting other than early learning, and then you can see the remaining categories for other activities and continued support of the Clarkston Community Center, the Culture Fest, Seagal Radio, and the Tell Me a Story Festival. And ultimately, we seek to provide all of it as efficiently and effectively as we can, looking at our existing processes. What can we do better? What can we enhance with technology? We are using, as I stated last week, some of our CARES money to automate a lot of our planning and review public access process, submitting building permits, submitting various applications, even the business registration, to obtain a business registration online, and folks will be able to pay for those online. So we are constantly ensuring that we can be as efficient as possible, while at the same time ensuring that we do receive all the revenue that we're entitled to. Again, no really significant change to our debt service in fiscal 21, as we still have required payments to be made for prior purchases. And again, our SPLOST, we will have more updates on this in January as to how we did have a bid opening a couple of weeks ago for the Roland Street work from Market all the way down to Lovejoy, and we'll be bringing that in January for council approval. And again, our stormwater, the DeBell Street project began last week. DeBell Street is actually closed, will be this week and next week for the project. But I'm sure the residents and the folks who use that will be very happy once that gets repaired. But we do expect to have quite a balance, probably even more than 400 at the end of this year, because we won't likely be paying the bills for that DeBell Street work until January. But that's the stormwater and sanitation are just funds that continue rolling over from one year to the next. Our sanitation recycling, as we have an item later today, we will be looking for the council to approve our recycling agreement with Latham Home Sanitation, and we will have that expense next year, which is part of this budget as well. And our grants, we'll have later today the local maintenance infrastructure grants that I mentioned last week, but really no other significant changes in our grant program. So again, our total funds budget $11,508,463. And as I stated last week, the entire narrative and line item budgets are included in the agenda packet, and there's an awful lot of information, but it's all by department, by line item. Certainly welcome any questions, comments that certainly anyone on council or anyone from the public may have. We did make the only change from last week to this week is we did include urban forestry under the parks budget for, as we discussed last week. But certainly all of that data is here, and certainly be happy to answer any questions or comments that the council or any member of the public but we didn't have anybody sign up for the public hearing, but I'll leave that up to Madam Mayor how to proceed. But that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez, for the presentation. And while we didn't have anyone to sign up at this time, I'll let the council ask additional questions, and then we'll open up the public hearing. So are there any questions from the council?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I just want to ask a quick question. So I think Mr. Gomez have met with me, and I'm not sure who else has had a chance to meet him, but I'm just curious if there are any changes that has been made based on the meetings with other council members. Thank you.
The only change that I mentioned related to planning and development to add a position, not, again, as I mentioned last week, the other two presentations on the budget, it was a recommendation to remove the position that we had not filled with that work being completed by our contracted firm. In response to council comments, decided to add back in a position in planning and development, as I stated, but because it was really that here within the last few days, as I stated, we will do that. It's just my recommendation that we can do that as a first quarter amendment to the fiscal 21 budget. That will give us, again, more than enough time to create the position, to determine its exact roles and responsibilities. That will be again, as I stated, related to planning and development, but also to just better to clarify the wording on some of the other items that we discussed last week. So those are really the changes that were mentioned that we've made.
Are there any other questions from the council?
Not at this time.
Okay, not at this time. Mr. Gomez, I had a question in terms of the position that you are transferring to the police department. Who will then handle the city social media and anything related to that type of marketing or communication?
No, it's the same position. It's really what happens now is minimal type of work in updating it, and quite a bit of that is done by our city clerk. So the city clerk will continue to make the updates, particularly to our internet site and some of the ones that are done on our social media. But the current position will still do some of that, as the police work will be likely represent anywhere from 70 to 80% of her role. But we've discussed that part of her role will still be to do some of the social media that's been happening. And again, we're simply putting out a lot of information. We'll still continue to do that. That's not going to go away.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that the city clerk, that responsibilities will still be held by someone in terms of the city clerk doing the website, doing social media.
Yeah, the social media will continue, as I stated, and it'll be, again, the position that we're transferring will still have most of those responsibilities for the social media part.
Okay. Okay. If there aren't any other questions, we will open our public hearing. And at this time, we will have anyone who is for the budget to speak. And Mr. Gomez, did you have anyone signed up?
No, Madam Mayor, did not.
Okay. And did you have anyone signed up against the budget?
No.
Okay. Because the budget is very important, if there is someone who is on the line and they do want to take the opportunity to speak, we will allow you the opportunity to make any comments at this time. Okay. Hearing none. Mr. Councilman Carroll, did you have something you wanted to say?
No.
Okay, thank you. Hearing none, we will close the public hearing at this time. And so with that closing, it is time for us to have the adoption of the 2021 operating and enterprise budget. Councilman Carroll?
I was going to make a motion if you think we're ready for a motion, unless anyone else has any more discussion.
I would entertain your motion, please.
I move that we adopt the 2021 operating budget.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Councilwoman Hopkins. It has been properly moved and second that we adopt the 2021 operating and enterprise budget. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion has passed. Thank you very much. And thank you, staff and Mr. Gomez, for putting a lot of work into updating the budget. We will now move into G2. G2 through G7 are all related, but we will do individual public hearings for each item. Mr. Gomez, we will talk about ordinance to readopt the city sign ordinance and to prohibit billboards along Interstate 285. Ms. Cowie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening. These are a few items that we will discuss for end of year initiatives. G2 is to solicit input on a text amendment to readopt the city sign ordinance and to prohibit new billboard signs along Interstate I-285. The sign ordinance is not changing other than being specific on prohibiting new billboards along I-285. And staff and Planning and Zoning Board did review this agenda item and voted to approve. Madam Mayor.
Ms. Cowie, at this time, are there any questions or concerns from the council? Hearing none, then we will proceed to the public hearing. At this time, we will have the public hearing and we will open it up to anyone who is for this ordinance. Mr. Gomez, did anyone sign up for it?
No.
Okay. Did anyone sign up against it?
No.
Okay. I'll just let it open up again. Okay. With that being said, we will go ahead and close this item and close the public hearing for it. And I will allow the council members to entertain a motion at this time.
I have a motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Yasu.
I move that we adopt or readapt the ordinance to readapt the city's sign ordinance and to prohibit billboards along Interstate 285.
Thank you.
I second.
Second. Thank you, Councilwoman Johnson. It has been properly moved and second that we adopt the ordinance to readopt the city's sign ordinance and to prohibit billboards along Interstate 285. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion has passed. Thank you very much. We will move on to G3, which is ordinance to confirm zoning designation for each parcel in the city. And that will be Ms. Cowie again. Thank you, Ms. Cowie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This agenda item is to solicit input on the ordinance to confirm the existing zoning designations for every parcel in the city of Clarkston and to have a single ordinance that will confirm these designations. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Cowie. Are there any questions from the council at this time? Hearing no questions, we will then open this up for the public hearing. And at this time, we will have in favor for this particular ordinance. Mr. Gomez, did anyone sign up for this one?
No, Madam Mayor.
And we'll close at that out and say, is anyone against that? Did anyone sign up? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Medford?
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, my apologies. Mr. Medford did sign up to speak. So
Okay.
Mr. Medford, go ahead. My apologies for that.
Okay.
No problem. I kind of tacked it on in my email. So I just wanted to speak in favor of this, but also want to remind the council that the changes for the zoning that you're voting for tonight are merely Band-Aids. They are not a cure. I'm going to implore you to move forward swiftly with the overall zoning review so we do not have to have these Band-Aid fixes in the future. So vote on these and then move swiftly forward with the zoning review itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Medford. Are there any other comments? Are there comments against this particular item? Hearing none, we will close out this item in terms of a public hearing. And so I will entertain a motion from the council.
I have a motion, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I move that we approve the ordinance to confirm zoning designation for every parcel in the city.
Is there a second?
Second.
You all wanted to second it. I think I heard Jamie first, though. Councilman Carroll. I'll let Councilman Carroll have that one. It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt the ordinance to confirm zoning designations for every parcel in the city. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. This ordinance has passed, and thank you very much. We will move on to G4, which is the ordinance by the City of Clarkston to adopt a new city zoning map. Ms. Cowie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The locations and boundaries of zoning districts within the City of Clarkston are on occasions amended. With those amendments, revisions, and updates are essential to maintain those changes, and those changes are on our updated zoning map, labeled as zoning, City of Clarkston, December 2020. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Cowie. Is there any discussion by the council? Hearing none, then we will open this for our public hearing. At this time, is there anyone in favor of that and would like to speak? And Mr. Gomez, did anyone sign up for this?
No, nobody signed up.
Thank you. And with that being said, is there anyone against this particular item? And Mr. Gomez, did anyone sign up for that?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay. With that being said, we will go ahead and close the public hearing, and I will entertain a motion for item G4.
I have
Yes.
a motion, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I move that we adopt the ordinance by the City of Clarkston to adopt a new city zoning map.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Johnson. It's been properly moved and second that we adopt the ordinance by the City of Clarkston to adopt a new city zoning map. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion has passed. Thank you. We will move on to G5, which is the ordinance to amend the text of the zoning ordinance to create the new zoning designation, railroad open space. Ms. Cowie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In making sure that each parcel located in the City of Clarkston has a zoning designation, this ordinance is for the CX6 railroad right-of-way that runs through the City of Clarkston to create the new zoning district, railroad open space. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Cowie. Are there any questions from the council at this time? Hearing none, we will open up the public hearing. And Mr. Gomez, were there anyone scheduled for this particular item?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Hearing no one for this particular item, was there anyone scheduled against this particular item?
No.
Okay. Hearing none, we will then go ahead and close this out, and I will entertain a motion from the council on this particular item.
I have a motion.
Councilman Hassan.
It's Chief, I have a motion to approve ordinance to amend the text of the zoning ordinance to create a new zoning designation, railroad open space.
Can I have a second?
Second.
I second that.
Okay. It's been properly moved and second that we will adopt the ordinance to amend the text of the zoning ordinance to create the new zoning designation, railroad open space. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion has carried. We will move on to item G6, which is ordinance to zone the CSX railroad right-of-way, railroad open space. Do I have any questions from the council? Hearing no questions or concerns from the council, we will open it up for a public hearing. Is there anyone for this particular item? And Mr. Gomez, did anyone sign up?
No, Madam Mayor, no signups.
Thank you. Is there anyone against this particular item? And Mr. Gomez, did anyone sign up for that?
No.
Hearing none, then at this particular time, we will go ahead and close out the public hearing, and I will entertain a motion from the council.
I have a motion.
Yes, Councilwoman Johnson.
I motion to adopt the ordinance to zone the CSX Railroad right-of-way railroad open space.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been properly moved and second that we will adopt the ordinance by the city of Clarkston to adopt ordinance to zone the CSX Railroad right-of-way railroad open space. Is there any discussion? Are you ready for the question? All in favor of adopting the ordinance to zone the CSX Railroad right-of-way railroad open space, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion has passed. Thank you. We will move on to G7, which is the ordinance to readopt the procedures for conducting public hearings required by the Zoning Procedures Act. Is there any questions regarding this one? Yes, Vice Mayor Yasu.
I have a question, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I do remember when this was adopted about a year or a couple of years ago, and I was against it at that time. I'm still against it. I don't even know why who put it on the agenda. Why are we readopting it even?
I can address that if you like. This is Stephen.
Yes, Mr. Quinn, please do.
So state law requires the city to adopt procedures like these. I mean, the state sets minimum allotment of time to talk for each side, but the details were filled in by the council previously. So the reason that they needed to be adopted is because the state requires it, and if we don't have them, then we could face challenges saying that all of our zoning is invalid. And the difference between what we did before and what we're doing now is, well, we're readopting for reasons, belt and suspenders kind of approach, housekeeping like we're doing with all these other items. But the only difference from what we previously did is that this ordinance would place the procedures in the zoning code so they're easier for people to access.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Any other discussion from the council? Hearing none, we will then open up the public hearing. And at this time, is there anyone for this particular item? Mr. Gomez, did anyone sign up for this?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay. With that being said, is there anyone against this particular item? And then Mr. Gomez, did anyone sign up for it?
No.
Okay. Thank you. At this time, we will go ahead and close out the public hearing, and I will entertain a motion from the council regarding this agenda item.
I have a motion to approve.
Second.
No, I haven't read yet.
Sorry.
I have a motion to approve to readapt the source of account for conducting public hearing required by the Zoning Procedure Act.
Second.
Am I done?
Yes, you're done. I need a second.
A second.
Okay. Thank you. It's been properly moved and second that we adopt the ordinance to readopt the procedures for conducting public hearings required by the Zoning Procedures Act. Is there any discussion? Hearing none.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
I have a I just want to say that I mean my biggest opposition to this is, which I felt the same way previously, is the fact that you are requiring people to make sure they register to speak for or against something. I just see that as very undemocratic, and it could that hampers people from being able to express their opinion, and that's the reason I feel like, again, for the same reason that I don't really feel that this is I understand that we need it for the procedures, but I still feel this is not democratic.
Sorry, Vice Mayor Yasu. Is there any discussion from any other council member that you'd like to voice at this time?
I would like to add on to what Vice Mayor Yasu just said. I do agree with him. I know we have to have it codified, our procedures codified. It does help to have it in the city code, but it doesn't specify what it has to be. And I don't think is a requirement that people say ahead of time if they're for or against, because very often people just want to bring a different point of view or to give a different perspective. And I think those are very valuable, which might be neither for nor against. So I would like to do away with the people speaking specifically for or against and just have it specifying the amount of time and who is allowed to speak and what's required, the procedures to sign up to speak, but not to be specified for or against the item they're speaking on.
Mr. Quinn, to that point, is that something that we can amend, or is there a particular reason why we have to make sure that we include for or against?
Yes, in fact, the state zoning procedures law, that's one of the minimum qualifications that they have for our procedures, that at the least they need to say allot a certain amount of time for those opposed and those in favor. Now, I suppose we could introduce a third category of those just wishing to speak, not necessarily, as long as we keep those two. But, you know, in the past, I feel like people who felt like they weren't really opposed or in support would just say that, you know, but we could add a third category and say that, you know, that's not required. I think the fact is that it's at the presiding officer's discretion to let other people speak anyway. These are the minimum. So we could add that. I don't think it's necessary, but I don't have a legal objection as long as we keep those two categories, even though I understand why they're not ideal. That's been dictated to us.
With that being said, Mr. Quinn, so we could have someone who was in favor, someone who's against, and someone who's neutral.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't think of a reason not that we could add that to it. You know, it's a little hard to do on the fly here, but if you guys want to work through it here, then we can do that and make it a part of the motion.
Council members?
Madam Mayor, if there is no other council member, I would like to also ask if it is also possible, if the other council members feel the same way, also to give people the ability to come out and speak, even though they did not register.
I totally agree with that, Vice Mayor, especially on public hearings.
How do you think, Mr. Quinn?
Yeah, so thank you. Honestly, it sounds like this council wants to revisit the whole policy, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, this one was adopted a couple of years ago. as Vice Mayor Yasu said, there was some disagreement at the time. The majority of the council felt, and I'm just not saying that this is right or wrong, I'm just recounting what occurred. The majority of the council felt that the zoning public hearings were sometimes taking too long and they wanted to rein them in. And that was part of what we were doing with the procedures. And like I said, this council may feel the opposite, and that's fine. What I would honestly recommend at this point, these are our current policies. They're on the agenda to readopt them as a legal maneuver to avoid trouble. My recommendation at this point would be that the council adopt this ordinance as it is, and then put it on its agenda to develop the zoning procedures that this council wants, and we can take that up at the next meeting. That would be my recommendation, rather than trying to do it on the fly, especially since during the work session, the community was not made aware that we were considering changing the rules. So again, I think it's fine to change them. I would recommend doing that next. And for now, just go ahead and codify this so we don't risk the next billboard company or whoever coming in and saying that we haven't adopted our procedures right.
Council, we do have a motion on the floor. Is there any other discussion? Okay. Hearing no discussion, all in favor to adopt the ordinance to readopt the procedures for conducting public hearings required by the Zoning Procedures Act, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay.
I'm muted.
I heard
Can
you.
guys?
Nay.
Okay,
Okay.
Nay.
It's 3-2. The motion's carried. And we can go back and revisit this. Thank you, everyone, for your input, and thank you for going through these particular items. We will now move to G8, which is development of local comprehensive plan agreement with the Atlanta Regional Commission to prepare the comprehensive plan update for the city of Clarkston. Ms. Cowie.
The city's comprehensive plan, known as the Clarkston 2040, is mandated to be updated before the deadline of October the 31st, 2021. To begin that update process with the city is required to enter into an agreement with the Atlanta Regional Commission. The sections that the city is required to update include the needs and opportunities, community work plan, a report of accomplishments, a new element that will be in the comp plan, broadband element, and a land use element. There is no cost for this technical assistance, Madam Mayor.
Ms. Cowie, is there any discussion by the council on this item? Ms. Cowie, in terms of next steps, if the council tonight approves it, what steps will go into effect?
The next step is to send a stakeholder list within 30 days of signing of the agreement so we can create our stakeholders committee. And from there, a timeline will be discussed with the Atlanta Regional Commission's representative for us to start the comp plan update process.
Ms. Cowie, if there is no discussion by the council, I'll entertain a motion for this particular item.
I have a motion.
I have a motion. Go ahead, sir.
I have a motion that the City of Clarkston comprehensive plan, known as the Clarkston 2040, is mandated to the time date of October 31st, 2021.
A second.
Second. Okay. It has been properly moved and second that we adopt. Let me get back to that particular ordinance. I'm sorry. Can you restate your motion, please?
I have a motion that the City of Clarkston Comprehensive Plan, known as Clarkston 2040, is mandated to be updated before the deadline date of October 31st, 2021.
Councilmember Hassan, you might want to read the agenda item, which is G8, Development of Local Comprehensive Plan Agreement.
If you want to go ahead and just look at the top of that one and make that motion to reflect it, then that would be okay.
Yes, the subject.
Yeah, the subject, yeah. I have a motion, I have a motion to approve the development of a local comprehensive plan agreement with the Atlanta Regional Commission to prepare for comprehensive plan update for the City of Clarkston.
I second that.
Okay. It's been properly moved and second that we develop the adoption of the local comprehensive plan agreement with the Atlanta Regional Commission to prepare for the comprehensive plan update for the City of Clarkston. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion has passed. We will then move on to G9, which is award weekly curbside recycling collection services to the lower bidder, Latham Home Sanitation. Mr. Gomez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As we discussed last week, we are ready to issue an award to the lower bidder for our weekly, to resume weekly curbside recycling collection for all residential units defined as single-family homes and small commercial locations, approximately 1,100 units within Clarkston at a monthly rate per unit of $5.25. The vendor firm, Latham Home Sanitation, is ready to begin the process as soon as we approve this item. There is an agreement attached. It is a 3-year agreement with two 1-year renewable, two 1-year renewable terms for a total of 5 years. Latham has been actually even already preparing by touring the city, having their driver tour the city, as well as the owner who spoke last week, Mr. Jarvis. Mr. Jarvis has been constantly communicating with me on some of the marketing material. He wanted to advise that the recycling will incorporate plastics 1 and 2, all paper, all cardboard, and all aluminum, steel, and tin cans. As discussed last week, there will not be any glass, and there will be an excessive educational campaign to explain to all those residential units that will be receiving the 18-gallon container as to what to place inside the container, certainly what not to place in there, but we're going to focus on what to place inside. The rest shall remain as trash or refuse. And as I stated last week, we will look to have these one-page, all the one-page flyers that will be created about the program over the next years, 3 initial years, that we will translate into various languages to provide those to residents so that they clearly understand what should be placed in the containers. But we will constantly provide just different educational materials, both print, electronic, as well as look to incorporate a video component that we can run certainly on our website, on our social media sites, to further encourage and ensure that the program is successful. As was stated last week, this is a program. It is to encourage and to utilize the resources that we're paying to properly recycle materials that are recyclable, and to ensure the success of this entire program.
You,
Yes,
you're
Vice Mayor
muted,
Yasir.
madam. Yes, I have a question, possibly to our city attorney on this. So since the contract, I believe, is for 3 years, and I'm just curious, is there any stipulation in the contract that says if there are reasons that the city want to get out of the contract, what is the procedure, or is there anything that says 6 months notice or something like that?
Mr. Vice Mayor, there's a 60-day provision to cancel the agreement in the agreement.
Okay, thank you.
So the 3 years really refers to like a price lock more than an obligation to continue.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question as well.
Councilwoman Hopkins.
Is it a change that they're only doing 1 and 2 plastics? Because I thought I understood him to say last week that he was doing 1 through 6.
He explained after the meeting that really the focus, he's going to get back with us, but when we will be certain, hopefully as early as tomorrow, to confirm the exact type of plastics that will be recycled. He did say that, then he came back the following day with a slight, with a change of 1 and 2, but he stated we will confirm the exact what types of plastics are recycled.
Okay, thank you.
You should have not reminded him, Councilmember Hopkins.
And Mayor and Council, as we begin this, again, I think as I've stated many times, and so did Mr. Jarvis, the key will be to remind our residents how and what to place in the container. I cannot overemphasize that. We must realize that there will likely be industry changes. As those happen, obviously we will inform all of you, but we will certainly inform all of the residents. This is going to be very involved, and we will be very involved. Again, as I've said several times, just to make sure it's as successful as it can be. It may come with a few growing pains, for lack of a better term. So we will ask for the public's certainly buy-in, but also patience, because we realize that there could be some just rather quick changes. Hopefully not, but the more articles I read in the last week about recycling, it seems we want to keep the items that are collected, and Latham and Mr. Jarvis will certainly do everything to keep items out of the landfills, and that they are able to be recycled, because that not only helps us but certainly helps their process. But we do recognize that there could be some quick changes, and we will do our certainly everything possible to stay on top of those changes and notify all of our customers of those changes.
I don't know if there's a way for us to do this, but there's still people who have waste management recycled.
Yep, we will go around and collect those. But that was another thought I had, because I saw some yesterday. So we will be going around and collecting the remaining ones. We will include that in our notice. I've found a few residences that it appears they're kind of using it to store yard waste. But but they'll understand that that's not to be put out for recycling. Because the containers that will be distributed, I believe, are going to be a purple color, so something very different than what the recycling that has occurred here in Clarkston for some time.
Hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion for this particular item.
I'd like to make a motion to award the weekly curbside recycling services to the low bid presented by Latham Home Sanitation at $5.25 per unit per month.
A second.
Properly properly moved and second that we award the weekly curbside recycling collection services to the Latham Home Sanitations at the 525. Is there any discussion? You ready for the question? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion has passed. We got recycling back. That's a good thing.
Woo-hoo.
Woo-hoo. So next, item G10, which is to approve GDOT Local Maintenance Improvement Grant 2021 application in the amount of $103,740 for various road, street milling, and resurfacing projects. Mr. Gomez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And again, as we discussed last week, this has been our annual approval of this local maintenance and improvement grant program from the Georgia Department of Transportation. We have utilized the funding the last 3 years for part of our streetscape project, specifically the project that will be starting. We had essentially rolled over 2 of these years for this project that will begin in January for Rowland Street from Market to Lovejoy. But the funding that we will be receiving in 2021 will be specifically for the road resurfacing for the streets that are listed in the agenda item for Carroll Park, Clarkston Industrial, part of Rogers, and I should have memorized the last one, but there it is. And for, I'm sorry, Vaughn Street. I'm sorry, it wasn't coming up on my screen. Here it is. So that's really what this item is for, simply for us to, for the council to approve our application to GDOT to receive this grant.
Is there any discussion from the council? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for this item.
I have a motion.
Yes.
Thank you. I move that we approve GDOT Local Maintenance Improvement Grant, LMIG 2021 application in the amount of $103,740 for the various road, street milling, and resurfacing projects.
Second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Johnson. It's been properly moved and second that we approve the GDOT Local Maintenance Improvement Grant 2021 application in the amount of $103,740 for various road, street, milling, and resurfacing projects. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion has passed. We'll move on to G11, which is approve allocating any and all CARES Act funds that will not otherwise be spent by December 2020 for rent, mortgage, and utility payments assistant relief to avoid returning unspent funds to DeKalb County. Mr. Gomez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I stated last week, again, we are on track to exhaust the 1.4 million. And again, we will not be returning anything to the county. We've actually added a little bit more during this meeting by adding the hazard pay to some of the other staff, city staff. So we're getting closer and closer to that amount. But as of this, right before this meeting, we were just for rent alone right at 800,000 that we have spent just for rent assistance. So utilities were approaching 25,000 with mortgage significantly less. But we, as I stated last week, we still have the approximately 200,000 left for that's committed to the different programs regarding the Wi-Fi connectivity, the early child programs and tutoring programs, the food distribution. As I included in my update this past Friday, we did make some payments for the early learning, for the food distribution, and there are, still those will be coming in over the next week. We essentially have until a week from Friday, but certainly there hasn't been a reduction in the requests for utility and rent. I anticipate that all the way through next Thursday, combined with all the other programs. We're also spending the money for the upgrades to our city facilities, to include some automated doors, automated faucets, soap dispensers, and hand drying, electrical, again, all hands-free. So we will expend every penny related to the 1,434,000. Excuse me, a little bit more than 1,000 more. $1,434,288.
Mr. Gomez, I'd entertain a motion at this time for this item.
I move that we approve the resolution to continue to provide temporary assistance with any and all CARES funds that will not otherwise be spent by December 20th, 2020.
Second.
Second.
Seconded that we approve using all CARES funds that will not otherwise be spent by December 20th for rent, mortgage, and utility payment assistance to avoid returning unspent funds to DeKalb County. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion passed. We will move on to G12, which is approve allocating CARES Act funds for an additional 5% hazard COVID-19 pay for all police and public works employees back to March 16th through at least December 20th, 2020. Mr. Gomez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And as again, we discussed last week when we looked at increasing from 5 to 10%, that brought us to approximately 100,000 in payroll, which we identified in our list as payroll 5% hazard pay. If you look at the list in the agenda item, or all these CARES Act items include the list of all the approved categories that council approved earlier this year. We had two other payrolls, payroll other, the only other category, as well as a contingency category. Mr. Defnall totaled for the remaining city staff to receive the hazard pay, and that equates to all the way back to March to $18,600. So approximately about $118,000 would be the additional hazard pay for the 10% amount back to March. And that is for all city staff, with the exception of the manager, because my pay is bound by city ordinance. But just to give that update again, approximately about 118,000. Mr. Defnall will be calculating all exactly, because we have to go back and just confirm some of the hours for example, for our code compliance, as to whether there were any field inspections, as both Ms. Cowie and Ms. Smith had been coming in just 1 to 2 days a week. So we just need to confirm that. That's why we'll have a final total by later this week. But certainly this is, as I shared this with staff, certainly they've been very thankful and really do appreciate this, and want to thank the council for approving it. And I do want to thank Ms. Jackson for bringing And I apologize which council member brought this up about our court staff, but they should have been included as well. And that's partially my oversight for not including them.
Thank you for that update, Mr. Gomez. Any question from the council or discussion from the council? Yes, Vice Mayor Yasu.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to give a little background, and first I want to say thanks to all our staff that has been working throughout the pandemic. I just want to say that so that people understand why did we pick 5%. At that time, we had no idea that we were going to get a CARES Act money, or we had no idea that how long the pandemic is going to last. When I proposed the rate increment, actually Clarkston was the first city in DeKalb County to do that, and we were really happy to do that, and we are certainly happy again now to raise it. And I just want to say thanks again to all our staff who's been working throughout this time. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Yasu. Is there any other discussion from the council? Okay, and just to make sure, I'm looking at this item, and it says for police and public works, but Mr. Gomez, when you mentioned it, you said for the staff. So I just want to make sure we're doing the ordinance correct, the item.
Well, it's not an ordinance, and
yeah.
And I mean, essentially this has previously been approved as payroll, but it's still good for the discussions and the council to approve it. But it is for, essentially what we're doing is for all city staff, Madam Mayor. And again, for all city staff, when they were physically working, if not at their work site here at the city, in where they normally work, they could have been out in the field as well, because public works and police typically work out in the field, as do our code compliance and our planning and development director when they are out. So this is, again, everybody except the manager.
So we don't have to change the wording for it and to say for all staff?
I think that's fine if you just simply, in the motion, just that it's for all staff.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we were clear on that.
So do we need to make a motion to amend?
Well, you are making the motion, so when you do make the motion, you can just make sure that, yes.
Okay.
So at this time, I entertain a motion.
Make motion?
Yes.
To approve allocating CARES Act funds for an additional 5% hazard COVID-19 pay for all city employees that are in contact with the public or in a public workspace back to March 16th through December 20th, 2020.
Second.
I second that. Okay.
Thank you. It's been properly moved and second that we adopt allocating CARES Act fund for an additional 5% hazard COVID-19 pay for all city staff who have been in contact with the public or worked in the public back to March 16th through at least December 2020. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion passed. We are at agenda item G13. Approve allocating CARES Act funds to upgrade city facilities to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Mr. Gomez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And again, just to reiterate, this is what we have been doing. We've added a few items, including some automated doors. We will be adding essentially we're still determining the exact nature, but a combination of a doorbell with a speaker where people can just press the doorbell and or a button, and a city staff person will respond. But we're working to finalize that part. But we will have automated doors, automated equipment at our restrooms at City Hall Annex, Milam Park, and Friendship Forest facilities. About the only thing we cannot do are the doors to the restrooms at all of the buildings. But and we currently have the touchless hand sanitizers, and we did, as I stated last week, purchase equipment for the additional, in essence, the deep cleaning and sanitizing of surfaces that our public works staff have currently been doing every day. Daily at City Hall Annex when we're open, Monday through Friday, and then daily over at City Hall where the police are in and out.
Well, it's pretty easy. He told me, like, you come in one day a week.
Is there any discussion as it relates to this item? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for this item.
I have a motion. I move that we approve allocating CARES Act funds to upgrade city facilities to reduce the spread of COVID-19.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been properly moved and second that we approve allocating CARES Act funds to upgrade city facilities to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. This motion's passed. And we'll move on to discuss the City of Clarkston registering to become an affiliate member of the AARP network of age-friendly states and livable communities. And that is myself and Councilwoman Johnson. And so with this one, we will, if the council entertains this motion, approve to do the application for us to be a member of the AARP network of age-friendly cities. We will be one of 5 other cities in the area. And what this will help us to do in terms of integrating it with our comprehensive plan, it will encourage us to do things in terms of making our city age-friendly, both from a young age all the way until your senior years. And so whatever we can do to make our city somewhere that is livable for intergenerational activities, this will happen. And it'll allow us other access to partners, volunteers, and other activities. And so Councilwoman Johnson, did you have anything else to add?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So next steps would be, if the council approves this, then we would go ahead and fill out the application and the letter, and then we will wait for AARP to approve our application. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I have a motion. I have a motion to approve the City of Clarkston registering to become an affiliate member of the AARP network of age-friendly states and livable communities.
Second.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second that the City of Clarkston register to become an affiliate member of the AARP network of age-friendly states and livable community. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Motion passed. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to G15, which is discuss, review, propose in the 2020 city calendar for holidays and council work sessions and meetings. Mr. Gomez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have, this is the item to look at our calendars and see if there are any changes that council would like to make to both our council meeting schedule and then city holidays for dates that city offices are closed. I do have one correction, and I will update the calendar and then resend back to the council. I was informed that the election our election is actually in March. The special election will be March the 16th. So we will not have to move our March the 2nd council meeting. So instead of Thursday, March the 4th, it'll be a regular Tuesday, March the 2nd. So I will just correct that on the calendar and then issue back to all of you. And when this is adopted, then we will certainly post this on our internet site and make it available to the public so they're aware of our meetings in 2021. And then for the holiday calendar, I included in there from last week's discussion the additional date, the Juneteenth day for Friday, June the 18th.
Robin, I have a question. Some people have asked me this and just reminded me, do you know yet when the qualifying period will be for the March 16th election? Or that may be a question for Tracy.
Yeah, sometime I think in January. Tracy, are you?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm waiting to hear back from DeKalb County. I always like to check with them to make sure that our dates are going to work with whatever their ballot production period is. But I've requested from them if January 18th, 19th, and 20th would work. So tentatively, those are the dates that I'm requesting.
Are there any other questions or concerns regarding the calendar and then the holidays for the city?
I got a question, Madam Mayor.
Vice
So
Mayor Yasu.
is this additional holiday going to be a paid day off for city employees, or is it just a holiday that the city will recognize?
I put in the original request for it to be a paid day off.
Okay. Mr. City Manager, so will this have any major impact? I don't think it will have, but I just want to make sure that
No, it has
Okay.
no impact to our operations, and we still will hopefully we'll be back to the quote unquote newer normal hopefully by then, but no, it doesn't impact our operations.
So Councilmember Hopkins, besides that, is there any other paid holiday that we are adding?
Not paid holidays. There were other holidays
Okay.
that wanted city to recognize maybe in their communications, but not to have it put it on the holiday calendar for like paid days off. I would like to add the comment though that I think it's fairly untraditional to call it Juneteenth Day. It's just Juneteenth, isn't it? Or maybe Juneteenth celebration, but Juneteenth Day just sounds odd.
It does. I thought that when I typed it, but whatever. I think we will call it Juneteenth celebration.
Okay.
Good. And the only other thing would be is how we do Election Day as a holiday, because that is something that we have.
Yeah.
Well, Madam Mayor, what was communicated to me by staff, and I think, I don't remember if a council member did, that the only election day that we had as a paid day off or a holiday for city employees, and therefore our offices were closed, is every 4 years for the national election. But I'm just going based on what was communicated to me. This is my second year here. We did not have any days off last year for the November election or any of the other elections held. But I believe last year, November was the only elections, any city elections. So next year, the city election we will have 2 days of city elections, the special one on March 16th, and then the election in November.
Just
November
a correction, Madam Mayor. It was actually for the presidential election and also governor's election. So it's going to be every 2 years.
We should be good. Is there any other discussion? I'll entertain a motion for this item.
I'll
Yes.
make a motion
Yes.
to approve the proposed fiscal year city calendars for holidays and council work session meetings with the mentioned adjustments of moving the March 4th city council meeting back to March 2nd and changing Juneteenth Day to Juneteenth celebration.
Second,
I second that.
it's been properly moved and second that we adopt the 2021 city calendar for holidays and council work sessions and meetings with the change from March 4th to March 2nd and to change Juneteenth Day to Juneteenth celebration. Is there any discussion? Hearing none.
I just want to.
Yes.
Well, I just want to say that I think this idea was brought by Councilmember Hopkins to her credit about 6 months ago, and it was just improperly removed from the agenda at that time. So I'm really glad that we are actually officially recognizing Juneteenth as a holiday. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hopkins, for bringing this joyous occasion to our city. And we're going to have fun planning it.
Oh,
So with that being said and no discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion has passed. And we are at our last item, which is discussion review proposed 2021 City Council and City Senior Staff Strategic Retreat. Mr. Gomez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And again, as we discussed last week, the council and senior staff have historically had an annual retreat to discuss city operations, city direction, strategies, listen to updates on construction projects, financial matters, etc. Excuse me, at last week's meeting, we left it that council chose Friday, February, or proposed, Friday, February the 12th to hold the retreat, which I guess at this point likely will be either a webinar type, electronic, virtual, unless we change it to distanced quite a bit between all of us at a large facility, but still have the retreat transmitted so the public could see the discussion and be able to view what the whole retreat. But I believe that's where we left off last week. I am open to any council direction, suggestions for this.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. I personally would like for us to continue to have this as a webinar because I think this is another opportunity for us to allow our community to participate with this. And I take any suggestions or recommendations from the council. Is that good with the council that we have this as a webinar?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, great.
I have one question, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to make sure that everyone on council is has the right equipment to actually go live on the webinar. Everybody okay with that? Because I don't know how savvy it'll be on a cell phone or an iPad with limited view. That's one thing we have to consider.
equipment, or if we need to have some other discussions about that too. It sounds like if there's an issue with the council member, that they can bring that up and we can address that. Thank you, thank you, Councilwoman Johnson, for bringing that up. And so hopefully if the council approves having the retreat on February 12th date, that is part of the communication going out to the residents, that we'll go ahead and include the webinar link so that they'll also have it as well. Can we make sure that we do that, Mr. Gomez?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Hearing no additional comments or discussion, I'd entertain a motion at this time.
I have a motion to approve wait a minute. Oh yeah, that's it. Okay, to approve the proposed FY 2021 City Council and City Senior Staff Strategic Retreat.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the proposed FY 2021 City Council and City Senior Staff Strategic Retreat. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, and just as a reminder, the date that we selected was February 12th. Okay. Hearing no additional discussion, all in favor of approving the proposed FY 2021 City Council and City Senior Staff Strategic Retreat, say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion has passed. And I want to thank the council and the staff for my first council meeting. And thank you for all who are participating online. At this time, I will entertain a motion for us to go into executive session.
I move that we go into executive session.
I second it.
Probably move
Can you state your motion again, Councilmember Carroll, to discuss?
Oh, yes, to
personnel
discuss the
matters?
personnel matter.
To discuss a personnel matter, and also I believe Stephen is going to give a legal update in the executive session.
I second.
You second that. So that we have a motion to discuss a personnel matter and a legal matter in executive session. Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion's passed, and we will recess the agenda. We'll recess the city council, go into executive session, which is not open to the public, but then we will end executive session and adjourn the meeting. So at this time, we want to thank everyone. If you just want to stay around and see us say adjourn, that's up to you, but we're going to go into executive session. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi,
Woohoo.
we're back.
Back. Okay.
That wasn't that
15 agenda
bad.
items and done by 10:15 with an executive session. Thank you, Beverly.
Very welcome. Thank you all. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Do we have a quorum yet? Somebody who's not here?
It's three. I
It's
heard
three.
three.
Yeah,
Oh,
there's
that's
four of you. There's four of you.
Four. Okay. Move to adjourn. Adjourn.
Five,
There we go.
actually.
Boom.
Good night, guys.
Bye.
Good night.